People have also asked me kind of what is the definition of a leader? I always say it's somebody that has followers. If you don't have any followers, you're not leading anybody. And if you don't have followers, it's because you're not persuasive, you're not influential, you're not bringing people along with your vision.
Today, we're mixing it up with an amazing mini-sode, a rapid-fire compilation from some of my past conversations with badass leaders. I always like to ask one of my favorite questions. What's the difference between a leader and a manager? And the answers I've collected are powerful. In this episode, you'll hear how different leaders break it down in their own words and what we can all learn from their perspective. If one of these clips sparks something for you, be sure to check the show notes for the link to the full interview. Trust me, you'll want to go deeper. So welcome to this week's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast, where I, Angela Gill Nelms, sit down with industry experts for candid conversations about the challenges and joys of leadership. Now let's dive in and get ready to scale your company, grow your brand, and unlock your full badass potential. Manager versus leader. How would you define the difference between a manager and a leader?
Yeah, what I mentioned earlier, I believe that a leader is always in the front pulling the organization, right? As opposed to being in the back and having the organization pull him or her. Managers, and we've all heard this, managers manage processes, they manage systems, they manage outcomes, and they're looking for execution. Leaders are making sure that the execution that we need, the processes that we need to work, that is all people, and I got to make sure that the people are good. So as it pertains to servant leadership, right? Yes. Servant leadership is all about service, right? It's so, there's all these beautiful books, Simon Sinek, Your Why, and there's so many books that are written on it. It is hard, but it's simple. It's just not simple or easy to do, but It's very simple.
I think there's leaders and there's managers. Mm-hmm. And I wrote about a book about this, so we'll chat about that in a second.
Yep.
I think as someone who runs an organization, your job is to set the vision of where you want the ultimate, the company to look like 3 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 8 from now, right? You're steering the ship the long term. Mm-hmm. And you have to convince everyone else that direction is right. Like this is number one, somewhere I want to work. We care about our employees. We do have a vision, and you put your words into action. And I think a badass leader to me is someone that runs an organization, drives the vision, actually succeeds on that vision, and for the most part, people want to follow them. People want to work there. They feel like they're valued. You don't have a lot of turnover at work. People literally comment, "Wow, I love the environment here that you've created." So I think it's a leader that thinks of all of those things, which is a lot of things to think about. And someone that isn't just out to make money or just out for the bottom line, and I think people feel that. And I know it's a buzzword today, but authentic, transparent. I think that's how I run the company, and I think people would second that.
Yeah.
So all those things together, I guess.
Yes. I'm grateful for that definition from you, because I'm always curious what individuals think.
For me, a leader is someone who listens and who serves. And a manager, in one word, is just someone who dictates. And it starts, again, for me personally, it starts with trust. But you can't get there with trust without transparency. And when I moved from being the COO of the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Pediatric Technology Center over to being the CEO of GCMI, Global Center for Medical Innovation. And so I am meeting with the team. Now, I did know many members of the team, Angela, but a lot of them I did not. And I am meeting with them and introducing myself for the first time virtually on Teams. It was a nightmare. And the commitment that I made to them was that I would be transparent and that I would share successes, but I would also share failures with them.
talk about managers versus leaders. And you talk about early in your career where you failed to tap into your empathy for others. And during those formative years, you were more of a manager rather than a true leader. And your definition that you placed here, and then I want to hear what your definition is as well, is managers plan, measure, monitor, coordinate, solve, direct, hire, fire, and perform many other actions. In a nutshell, managers manage things. Conversely, authentic leaders inspire and guide people toward growth and success, and empathy is required to do so effectively. Tell us more about your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think I had a great mentor. I worked for her for 16 years, and there were a lot of things I learned from her. But I'd say one of the big ones was that your resume is determined by the number of people you help achieve success and achieve what they want to accomplish. This morning, so I brought my team together for a quarterly business review, and we had a conversation on what do you want to accomplish this year and why? Why is that important to you? And everybody thanked me at the end of the day that they thought that was the best part of the day, because the rest of the day was talking about our pipeline, our opportunities, what we're going to do this quarter, next quarter. And that's the first part of the management.
Yeah, all the
definition,
measurements,
right?
yes.
Yeah. And
which are important pieces.
and I have to do those.
Yes,
yeah,
but
the
they're
team makes
written.
me do those.
Right.
Yeah. But that exercise we had this morning, and I opened up a lot. I shared a lot on why I do what I do and what's important to me. And I told them at the end of kind of when I spoke, I said, I hope none of you are working for me next year, because they all went around and talked about their goals, and they all want to either move up market, which is, is a pay increase and more responsibility, or they want to go into management. And I said, I hope none of you are working for me next year. If that's the case, then I've done an incredible job. And
Right.
so to me, that's more leadership, is how do I help them get what they want, get to where they want to go. All that other stuff, I have to do it. And it's a majority of my day each day, but that 1 hour we spent this morning, top the rest of the day.
Yeah, I think it first starts with relatability and having some EQ. The shamager, the manager, they're absolutely shitty with EQ. Let's just call it what it is. Now, a unicorn leader, somebody who has great intelligence, they're going to lead with connection and emotional intelligence. Shamagers, they're never going to check their own ego. So they're going to allow great ideas to pass by if it ensures that they keep someone else hidden. Right? Now, a unicorn leader is going to say, hey, I don't know everything. Y'all probably have better ideas than me. Let's go. Let's raise it up. Let's figure it out. A shamager is all about burnout. They reward that, actually, and they really look for people who have a lack of boundaries on work and life integration. I know for a fact, because my last C-suite role, all they wanted to talk about was a woman who would go watch her daughter play volleyball and softball. And meanwhile, I'm looking at them. They know I have 3 children. They know that it's football season. They know this because I told them in the interviews. Did that make me feel the least bit safe to be able to have any work-life integration for myself, to be able to get to football games on time or volleyball games on time? They really idolized that burnout, whereas a unicorn leader is going to remind the team in both actions and words how to have healthy work-life boundaries. Those are the first 3 that come to mind.
Yeah, honestly, the difference is pretty, I think, astounding. You've got a manager who, that's what they call it, manages, who basically looks at employees or individuals and manages what they do on a day-to-day basis. They don't have any type of, I think, future focus. They don't have any type of future, I think, help for that individual in mind. And so there is a huge difference between that and what a leader is. A leader is somebody who has a vision, who has a direction of where they want to go or where they want to take a business or take individuals. So if they are leading a team, and that's the other difference, a manager will not lead a team. They'll manage by an individual kind of setting, whereas a leader will more manage in a team type of environment. They will have their direction, their thought process, their kind of go-to strategy on what they want to do, how they want to go about doing it, and how they want to achieve it, and then do it. And I think that's where the big difference is between the two. One of the questions when you sent it to me, I was like, I've got some pretty good ideas around that. One of them was really that I learn most from my worst person managing me.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that right there is, I think, the biggest tell in that, I think when you
are managed by somebody or quote unquote try to be led by somebody that doesn't really have that ability or doesn't have really the insight of themselves and what they're doing, you learn the most from them. And I think from that end of things, that's, I think, where I really want to make a valid point on the differences. Because, when you are led by somebody that is not a forthright leader, you learn the aspects of what not to do when you become a leader.
The manager knows what he has to do, right? It's like in the orchestra. We said the musicians know their music, they know what to do, and the leader is going to give the tone, set the tone, or obviously use his intuition to make decisions that others would probably not make. And you could be a good manager, not necessarily a good leader. And not all leaders have intuition, but I think if you use all your senses and intuition, and if you're aware of what you should be aware of, then you become, a great leader.
I think managers get a result regardless, or that's the goal, right? Is like a manager is you're managing to a result. I think about the scale of like, are you more results oriented or relationships oriented? I am more of a results oriented person. But as I've had to learn through my career so far is like, you cannot accomplish a result unless you're solo running a business, like with no other people involved, without going through people. And you can't mow through people. So I think a manager goes after results for results' sake. And leaders realize that you only accomplish results through other people. And so they lead a team to accomplish the result instead of results for results' sake. And I say doing it no matter what, because you end up mowing through people in the process.
I think the manager is someone who has positional authority, and their job is to make sure that things work and get done. So they're about budgets, process, metrics, those kinds of things. They're managing, truly managing, to make sure everything is running as it should. A leader's role, in contrast, because managers can be leaders too, but a leader's role, in contrast, is to lead with influence. They have no sometimes they have positional authority, but sometimes they don't. Consultants didn't have positional authority at all. We had to influence. And by leading with that kind of influence, you realize it's pretty difficult. You've got to be very persuasive. You've got to have a story that has a great hook to it. It sings. You've got to unleash the passion in the people. Which is a whole lot different than saying, this is due at 5 o'clock on Friday, you just better get it done, right? Which is
Right.
kind of the manager's philosophy, the manager's approach. People have also asked me kind of what is the definition of a leader, other than those sort of characteristics. I always say it's somebody that has followers. That's the easiest way to think about a leader. If you don't have any followers, you're not leading anybody. And if you don't have followers, it's because you're not persuasive, you're not influential, you're not bringing people along with your vision.
How would you define the difference between followers and employees? Because I think there's a difference between the two.
Absolutely. Followers, just as in the leader's role is leading with influence, followers are voluntary.
Yes.
Employees, they don't have a choice. When I say get it done by 5 o'clock on Friday and you don't do it, you're not going to be an employee for much longer.
Right.
So they don't really have a choice. And that's that positional authority and obedience kind of hierarchy thing that goes on with management. Whereas leadership, those followers are 100% voluntary.
I tend to think of leadership around vision and people and inspiration and all of that, whereas I think of management is around tasks and doing things. And so you can have a manager that is both a leader and a manager, and also you can have a leader that also can manage, but sometimes leaders need to keep their hands out of the management depending on how they're set up. But I see a leader is someone that brings people up and really helps people grow, and their actions are very much spiral impact. I had an experience. I was showing up for a speaking engagement, and I was in the lobby of the hotel, and I was waiting in line to check in, and there was a small group of people in front of me, and this one young woman, she was so angry. She was so angry, and she was telling her coworkers, she said, I was brought here to do photography for this convention, And he is telling me everything to do. He's telling me everything to do, like I don't know anything. And it was just, so her leader, her boss, I don't know what his position was, so he hired somebody that had this expertise. And he could have said to her, I really value what you bring to the table. What do you think is important when you look at this project? This is what we want in the end. That's, again, the intention.
What success is. What success looks like is this.
Yeah, and so how would you go about doing this? What is it that you would do? And that would make her feel empowered. She wouldn't be sitting there bad-mouthing him to all her coworkers. So, I mean, it's leaders have got to be really careful with that kind of stuff and really lift up the people that work for them and trust. It's not that you just say blindly, go figure that out. You want to check in, particularly if you don't know somebody very well or if they're new. But always asking first, how would you go about doing this?
I think I would probably side with guys like Stephen Covey, who would say things that, like managers are more about where we're going, how we're going to get there, and why you should care.
Okay.
Right? Engaging more of that vision and some of the lagging results.
Okay.
And then the manager's job.
Oh, you just said managers were that, and that's.
Oh no, sorry,
that's what
the
threw
leader.
me off. I was like,
sorry.
that really feels like a leader.
Leaders probably more vision.
Okay. Yes.
Some of the results, and then the manager's job is more around how are we going to get there, and how are we going to keep the people engaged, and also how are we going to keep score. And so, in my mind, I think it's more of a continuum. Mm-hmm. Of you have people that are just extremely far out on the edge of leader, high vision, high energy, high motivation, couldn't lead ants to a picnic.
Yes.
Right? In terms of their attention to detail and ability to project manage things, right? And in some organizations, those people can be wildly successful. And I've worked with other leaders who can just organize and structure and execute fantastically, but they have no idea where to go. They need each other. Mm-hmm. And I find most roles lie somewhere along that continuum, right? Of I need you to project manage these things, to a CEO shouldn't be project managing anything. But a lot of us have roles that are in the middle. Where it requires some leadership skills, but it also requires some management skills. And I think that's where the distinction starts to get more difficult is because if you've got a director level title in a Fortune 500 organization, well, what are you? Are you a leader or are you a manager? You're something in the middle. And that lack of clarity is, I think, part of what makes so many of those jobs so difficult.
Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast. To hear more interviews with industry experts and learn how to grow your career and leadership potential, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to ensure you do not miss future episodes. This podcast is a production of the AGN Group. To learn more about the AGN Group, visit our website at theagnGroup.com. There, you can discover more about our services, which include hosting workshops, management consulting, brand strategy, keynote speaking, and more. Follow us on all social media channels shown on the screen and displayed in the show notes. And until next week, be brave and be badass.